Brenner Alcott adjusted the harness on Maple's vest and gave the golden retriever a pat between the ears. "All set, girl?" he asked. Maple looked up at him with calm, amber eyes. Her tail gave a soft thump against the floor. She wore her service dog vest, bright blue with a white patch reading "Medical Alert, Do Not Distract." The hallways of the interspecies cultural exchange campus hummed with a low, ambient vibration as hundreds of species went about their routines. The ISAC had been built just outside Minneapolis, a joint venture between Earth's Global Cooperation Council and the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. For 3 years now, Brenner had worked as a cultural liaison and guest lecturer in human behavioral sciences. Today, he had been invited to speak to a group of first-year alien students from the planet Varnock, a desert world infamous for its harsh wildlife and absolute lack of domesticable animals. The Varnockians had never evolved the concept of animal companionship. Their species, the Siltari, were bipedal, lanky beings with slate-gray skin and softly glowing eyes that changed hue based on emotion. As Brenner rounded the corner into Lecture Hall C5, the room quieted. The Siltari students turned in unison, tall and motionless, their eyes shifting from a mellow blue to a sharp, pulsing orange. "Good morning," Brenner called out. The translator units embedded in the walls repeated his words in the student's native frequency. One student near the front stood up abruptly, towering above the others. His name was Yil, and he had been particularly curious in pre-session messages. "Sir, what is that creature?" Yil pointed a trembling hand at Maple, who sat politely at Brenner's side, tail wagging once. "This is Maple. She's my service dog." The orange glow in the room intensified. Another student, Tack, let out a low-frequency whine that activated several of the emergency alert sensors. "She's not dangerous," Brenner said quickly. "She's trained to detect changes in my blood sugar and alert me." Jaw-like ridges along Tack's neck flared wide. "It is a predator. You brought an Earth predator into this room." Brenner crouched next to Maple, placing his hand gently on her back. "She's not a predator. She's trained. She helps me." "Watch." He pulled a small device from his pocket and pricked his finger. Maple's nose twitched immediately. She stood, nudged Brenner's leg, then sat again, looking up at him. "She just detected a drop in my levels. That's what she's for." "She's not here to hurt anyone." Yil stepped back and bumped into a console. "She smells your blood and wants to consume it." "No, she's warning me that I need to eat something or I could pass out. She's trying to help me survive, not eat me." There was a long silence. Then one of the students, a shorter Siltari named Ivan, leaned forward. His eyes faded to a cool green. "You allow this creature to touch you?" "Yes, she's trained to interact with me. She's gentle." The others still looked uneasy, but some of the tension drained from their stance. Brenner decided to pivot. "Let me show you something." He guided Maple to the center of the room and placed a small object on the floor, a plastic bottle with a drop of scent. "Maple, find it." She sniffed the air, patted over, and tapped the bottle with her paw. Then she sat and looked back at Brenner. "She can detect specific scents, alert to changes in body chemistry, retrieve medication, and even wake me if I'm unconscious." Yil had not moved, and if she is provoked, she's trained not to react with aggression. "It's not in her nature. She has teeth," Tack said. "So do I," Brenner replied, "but I don't bite people." That drew a few puzzled blinks. A student in the back tilted his head. "You compare yourself to your beast." "She's not a beast. She's family." The room fell into a contemplative hush. Brenner took that moment to transition into his lecture, focusing on the human-animal bond, the concept of empathy, and how Earth's creatures had co-evolved with people. Maple lay quietly at his feet, occasionally lifting her head when he moved. By the end of the hour, several of the students had inched their seats closer. Ivan even dropped a small piece of dried fruit on the floor near Maple. She sniffed it, looked to Brenner for approval, then let it be. After the lecture, Brenner gathered his things. He clipped Maple's leash to her harness, and as they made their way out, Tack blocked the door. "May I ask something?" Tack's voice was low, of course. If I were to reach toward you fast, would it attack? Brenner paused. If you moved suddenly toward me, Maple might step between us. But she wouldn't bite, she would probably bark. I wish to test your trust. Before Brenner could respond, Tack lunged forward. Maple instantly stepped in front of Brenner and let out a sharp bark, not loud, not aggressive, just one bark. Tack froze mid-motion, arms raised. Maple sat and looked up at him. She protected you, Tack said, looking stunned. Yes, but she didn't attack, that's the difference. Tack's eyes dimmed, he stepped back and bowed slightly. I apologize, it's all right, just don't do that again. She did her job, but that could have gone worse. As Brenner turned to leave, he felt a sharp tug at his side. His world tilted. When he came to, he was on the floor, head spinning. Maple was whining, pawing at his chest. He blinked up at the circle of concerned Siltari faces. My blood sugar, he rasped. Yil knelt beside him. She warned you. Brenner nodded weakly, reaching for the glucose gel in Maple's pouch. Ivan helped guide it to his mouth. Maple licked his hand once, then resumed her alert posture. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, one of them a fellow liaison named Sandra Kessler. She knelt beside Brenner, eyes scanning his vitals. You're lucky, she said. If Maple hadn't alerted them, you might have passed out completely. She did her job, Brenner whispered. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, he caught sight of Tack standing in the doorway. I understand now, Tack said. She is not a predator, she is purpose. Brenner gave a faint nod before the world drifted again. He woke in the med ward several hours later, Roman 4 in his arm, Maple curled up in a tight ball at the foot of the bed. Sandra was seated beside him, clipboard in hand. You scared a few folks, she said. I scared myself. Your dog, she didn't leave your side. Not even when the Siltari tried to scan her, Brenner groaned. They tried to scan her, politely, and she growled at the scanner just once. He smiled weakly. Good girl. The next morning, Brenner returned to the lecture hall to collect his things. Maple trotted beside him, tail swishing. As they entered, he stopped short. The students were waiting. Each of them held a small token human dog toys printed from the campus replicators. Yil stepped forward and placed a blue rubber bone at Maple's feet. For the guardian, he said. And for the lesson. Maple sniffed it once and wagged her tail. Brenner chuckled. She accepts. The students gathered around, this time not in fear but fascination. Ivan knelt and extended a hand. Maple sniffed his fingers, then licked them. She is not what we feared, Ivan said. No, Brenner said. She's better. He sat down slowly, still a bit sore. Maple curled up beneath his chair. Tack came forward last. I have requested to study Earth's canines further, he said. I wish to understand how such a creature can be both protector and peace. You're welcome to, Brenner said, but you'll learn it's not just the dog, it's the bond. Tack looked down at Maple. Then I have much to learn. That afternoon, as Brenner walked through the courtyard, Maple at his side, he passed a group of Siltari students practicing slow approach techniques. One student knelt on the grass, holding out a treat. Another was sketching Maple's posture in a notebook. Sandra joined him near the bench. Looks like you sparked a whole new curriculum. I just wanted to teach one lecture. Well, now you're a case study, Brenner laughed, then winced. His ribs still ached from the collapse. Don't push it, Sandra warned. You need at least another week before any strenuous work. Yeah, he said, watching Maple trot after a bouncing toy one of the students tossed. But it's worth it. She returned, dropped the toy at his feet, and looked up expectantly. He tossed it again. This time, Yil ran after it too. And Maple let him. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the translucent panels of the habitat dome, casting elongated shadows across the observation yard. Small maintenance drones buzzed like metallic dragonflies overhead, occasionally stopping to adjust light calibrations. Outside lecture hall C5, Brenner sat cross-legged on the grass with a handful of nutrient crackers, one of which Maple was delicately nibbling from his open palm. You're spoiling her, came a voice from behind. Brenner glanced back to see Tack standing just beyond the footpath, holding a datapad awkwardly like it might detonate. "She deserves it," Brenner said, brushing a few crumbs off his pants. She didn't even bark at the translation text today. Tak stepped onto the grass, movement more relaxed than before, though his long limbs still moved like he was calibrating every joint individually. "I have reviewed 47 hours of terrestrial canine footage," he said without preamble. "Your species has permitted dogs to engage in sled hauling, water rescues, and even avalanche retrieval. But this," he gestured at Maple, who was now lying on her side with a cracker balanced on her nose, "this level of compliance without neural implants is confounding." "It's called trust," Brenner replied, "and repetition. Lots of repetition." Tak knelt slowly, then offered the datapad to Maple, who sniffed it and sneezed. "She does not respond to visual interfaces. She's not a touchscreen kind of girl, but she understands symbols, some words, and tone. You've got to meet her where she is." Tak squinted at Maple's wagging tail. "She appears content with minimal stimulation. She just went through a 2-hour scent exercise with your classmates. She's earned her nap." Tak tapped the datapad again, then turned it around. A grainy video played of a mountain rescue, 2 humans and a dog pulling a shivering climber from a snowbank. "Do they understand the risk?" he asked. "These dogs, are they aware they might perish?" "They don't think about it like that. They act because they're trained to. And because they love the people they work with." Tak's eyes dimmed slightly. "We have no equivalent." "I know," Brenner said gently. "But that's why you're here." Maple rolled onto her back, paws in the air. Tak startled slightly but didn't retreat. "She appears vulnerable. She's asking for belly rubs. That is a combat feint on my homeworld." "Well, here it's a compliment." Tak hesitated, then extended 2 cautious fingers. Maple licked his knuckles and gave a contented sigh. Tak withdrew his hand as if it had passed through a plasma field. "I require recalibration," he muttered. "You and me both." A light ping echoed from Brenner's wrist monitor. He glanced down. "Time for her check-in." "Check-in, I log her data every 6 hours. Hydration, alert cycles, glucose detection accuracy. It's part of the program. You are monitored as well, constantly, comes with the condition. My pancreas doesn't regulate insulin properly, so Maple helps me stay out of the ER." Tak tilted his head. "Why not mechanize the monitor entirely? There are devices. I wear one." "But machines don't always respond fast enough. Dogs can sense changes before they show up in the data." Tak appeared to process this in silence. Then, "You rely on an animal more than a machine." "Yeah. Because she's better at it." Maple flopped back onto her stomach, tail thumping twice against the grass. Tak studied her, then slowly mirrored her posture, sitting on the ground with his legs folded to the side. "May I observe your check-in process?" Brenner pulled a compact scanner from his bag and pressed it lightly against Maple's flank. A soft chime sounded. "Heart rate's normal, hydration's a little low, but nothing urgent. She's due for water soon." He then scanned his own wrist device, frowning slightly at the readout. "I'm trending low again, probably all the crouching and sun." Tak craned his neck to see the display. "Your levels are expressed in numerals, milligrams per deciliter. It's how we track glucose concentration. Below 70 is bad, I'm at 79. Should you consume glucose? Already on it." Brenner reached into his bag and pulled out a small gel packet, tearing it open and sucking down half. Maple perked up at the crinkle. "She associates that sound with recovery?" "Yeah, she knows it means I'm doing what I'm supposed to." Tak blinked slowly. "And if you did not comply, she'd keep alerting, pushing me, whining. She won't stop until I correct it." There was a long pause. "She is more persistent than most students." Brenner chuckled, adjusting his posture. "Sometimes more than professors, too." Just then, a trio of Siltari students passed by, each carrying a small printed effigy of Maple made from recycled polymer. One paused and gave a respectful nod toward the dog. Maple sniffed the air and wagged her tail once. "They have begun a replication initiative," Tak said. "Some are constructing behavioral analogs to study her routine." "I heard." Someone asked me for her sleep schedule. I had to explain she doesn't follow one, imprecise yet effective. Welcome to Earth Logic. Tack leaned forward. May I inquire about her training process? Brenner gestured for him to sit closer. It starts with basic obedience, then scent association, then task-specific drills. It takes months, sometimes years, depending on the role. Is there punishment? No, just redirection and rewards. She learns because she wants to please, not because she's afraid. Tack's fingers twitched. That methodology would fail among Siltari younglings. We favor structured consequence. Doesn't work with dogs. They don't hold grudges or plot revenge. They just want to be part of the pack. Maple let out a soft chuff and nudged her nose under Brenner's hand. She requires your contact. She just likes it. It reassures her. Tack observed in silence as Brenner scratched behind Maple's ears. A few moments passed. Then Tack placed the datapad gently on the grass and reached into a side pouch, producing a small, dried sliver of something grayish-blue. Is this compatible nourishment? Brenner eyed it. That's dehydrated slag root. She probably won't eat it. She has consumed crackers and peanut paste. This is more nutrient-dense. You can offer it, just don't be offended if she turns it down. Tack held it out. Maple sniffed cautiously, then sneezed and turned her head. I am not offended. She once refused a $50 imported duck stick. She's got standards. A soft chime echoed from the internal campus comms. Brenner glanced at his wrist. We've got 15 minutes before the next workshop. You staying? I will observe. Good. Today's topic is nonverbal signaling in interspecies partnerships. Tack stood and brushed his hands clean. Will there be demonstrations? Maple's already on the schedule. She's got fans now. As they walked side by side toward the hall, Tack looked down at Maple, who padded along between them. She has altered my understanding of sentient assistance. She's altered a lot of things, Brenner said, including my odds of staying alive. Inside, the lecture room was already half full. Students arranged themselves in concentric arcs, leaving a wide space at the center. On the floor sat a matte black mat with a printed grid. Beside it, a stack of color-coded cards and a small bowl of dried liver bits. Brenner stepped into the center, Maple sitting attentively at his side. Today, he began, we're going to explore how species without spoken language can still convey intent, emotion, and instruction. He held up a red card. Maple immediately stood, turned in a circle, and sat again. The room rippled with soft exclamations. She's reading color, someone asked. No, she's associating the color with a task. Watch. He held up a green card. Maple lay down and covered her nose with her paw. Several students leaned forward, eyes aglow. Tack stood just behind the first row, silent, absorbing. She's not just reacting, Brenner said. She's remembering. And she's choosing to respond because of the relationship we've built. He stepped back, gave a subtle hand signal. Maple trotted over to a side table, nudged open a small drawer, and returned with a folded cloth in her mouth. A collective hush fell over the room. She can retrieve items based on scent and context. That cloth smells like me. She knows it belongs in my kit. A student near the back raised a hand. Does she know she's teaching us? Brenner looked at Maple, who had now curled up on the mat. No, she just knows she's doing her job. And she's happy to do it. Tack watched as Maple closed her eyes and let out a long exhale. Then, softly, he said, She is not our kind, but she serves as if she were. Brenner nodded. She's part of the team. Outside, the lights shifted toward evening hue. Inside, 50 Siltari students sat in silence, watching a dog sleep, each one scribbling notes about a loyalty they could not yet understand, but were beginning to trust. The next morning, Brenner walked into the behavioral simulation lab with a container of boiled eggs under one arm and Maple trotting silently at his side. The lab was cooler than most rooms on campus, filtered air circulating in rhythmic pulses meant to mimic open terrain. Most of the Siltari students had arrived early and were already seated in a wide semicircle, their long limbs folded into various postures of attentiveness. Brenner set the eggs on a side table, unclipped Maple's harness, and let her stretch. She padded toward the far wall where a mock living environment had been staged for the day's final session, a domestic earth setting with a couch, a table, and a conspicuously empty dog bed. Yil was the first to speak, his tone cautious but no longer strained. "We reviewed your assignment." "Good," Brenner said. He pulled a lightweight stool into the center of the room and sat down, rubbing his leg absently. "Let's discuss what you observed." Ivan raised his hand without waiting for acknowledgement. "I attempted to replicate the glucose detection task with a scent-mimicking drone. It failed. The drone was able to identify the compound, but it did not initiate a response unless prompted." "That's the problem with automation," Brenner said. "It doesn't act unless it's told to." "Maple acts because she understands the stakes." Tack leaned forward, his datapad resting on his knee. "But does she understand mortality, or only discomfort? She doesn't need to understand death in order to prevent it." "Neither do most of us half the time." There was a ripple of low-frequency murmurs. Brenner stood, walked over to the couch, and sat. Maple jumped up beside him and rested her head on his thigh. He opened the container of eggs and peeled one, the scent wafting quickly through the room. "She'll want one," he said. "Should we allow it?" Yil asked, his eyes flicking briefly toward the bowl. "She won't take it unless I give it to her." He held it out. Maple sniffed, waited. Then, when he gave a short nod, she took the egg gently from his fingers. Tack watched closely. "You denied her before giving permission. She complied. That's the whole idea. She follows the rules even when the reward's right there, because the rules keep me safe." "You're saying she restrains herself on your behalf." "Exactly." Ivan scribbled something on his tablet. "I observed a species on Terrene 4 that exhibits similar behavioral control, but only under threat of punishment. Maple's never been punished in her training, just redirected." "Negative reinforcement doesn't build trust, it builds fear." Tack stood suddenly, walked to the mock counter, and picked up a replica medical kit. "I wish to simulate an emergency." Brenner raised an eyebrow. "You want to test her live?" "Yes, I have reviewed the emergency protocol for hypoglycemia. I will simulate collapse and see if she performs the alert sequence. You'll need to do it right. She won't react if she doesn't believe it. I have reviewed human distress postures. I will initiate a slow slump and include vocal distress." Brenner gestured toward the open space. "All right. But if she gets confused, don't push it. She's not a machine." Tack lay on the floor and began breathing heavily, then added a low groaning sound, deliberately erratic. Maple stood, ears perked, and trotted over cautiously. She sniffed Tack's shoulder, then glanced at Brenner. "She's verifying," Brenner murmured. Maple pawed at Tack's chest once, then barked not loud but distinct. She turned to Brenner, barked again, and then nudged the medical kit Tack had dropped. "She passed," Ivan said, eyes wide. "She identified distress, attempted to rouse, and retrieved the appropriate resource." Tack sat up. "She responded despite my different scent pattern. She recognizes the posture and the sound, and she knows those mean I might need her. She's extrapolating from one case U to a new subject," Brenner nodded. "She generalizes when the stakes are high enough." A quiet settled over the room. Then Yil stood and approached Maple. He knelt slowly and placed a small object on the floor, a soft, orange piece of synthetic fabric. "I constructed this," he said. "It is a replica of the cloth she retrieved during the previous session. May I observe whether she detects the difference?" Brenner gave a small nod. "Go ahead." Yil stepped back. Maple eyed the replica, sniffed once, then padded to the corner where the original cloth had been placed earlier and retrieved that instead. She brought it to Brenner and sat. "She knows the difference." "She does," Brenner said. "Her nose is better than any scanner we've got." No one spoke for a moment. Maple lay back down and exhaled slowly, her tail tapping once against the floor. Tack broke the silence. "I no longer fear her." Brenner looked over. "Good. She never wanted you to fear her." "I misunderstood the nature of what she is. I believed her loyalty was programmed. It is chosen. That's what makes it meaningful." Several students leaned in, their eyes dimming to a thoughtful gray. Yil cleared his throat. May I ask something unrelated? Sure. You are not always well, you have said so, and yet you teach, you travel, you interact with species that do not understand you. Why? Because staying home and hiding doesn't make the condition go away. And because there's value in showing others what it looks like to live with it. But you could perish. You said this yourself. I could, but I probably won't, not if I manage it, not if Maple's with me. Tak tilted his head, and if she is not, then I adapt. Humans are good at that. Ivan looked at Maple, and she adapts with you, always. The session ended quietly that day. As the students filed out, each gave a short gesture toward Maple, not a bow, not quite a salute, but something in between. Brenner stayed behind to pack up. Maple sat near the door, watching the last of the students disappear down the corridor. Tak lingered. I wish to ask one final question. Go ahead. What happens when she is no longer able to assist you? Brenner paused, then closed the lid on the egg container. She'll retire. She'll live with me, and I'll thank her every day. And you will find another? Yes, but I'll never replace her, just train someone new to help, that's what she'd want. Tak watched Maple for a long moment. Your species has a strange form of courage. Brenner gave a tired smile. We get that a lot. Tak turned to leave, then stopped. I intend to write my thesis on the ethics of voluntary interspecies service. I will include her. Make sure you spell her name right. Tak nodded and disappeared into the hallway. Brenner sat down on the couch. Maple hopped up beside him, pressing into his side just enough to feel her warmth. He leaned back, let his hand rest on her back. You did good today, he said softly. She didn't move. Just stayed there, eyes half closed, content. Outside, the artificial sun dimmed to twilight. Inside, Brenner closed his eyes for just a moment, hand still resting on Maple. Behind them, the observation cameras powered down. The session was complete, no alarms, no emergencies, just a man and his dog resting after a job well done.